Hello everyone, welcome back to Ilium Biology. Let's proceed with our next lecture. We are continuing with the topic human health and disease, and today we would discuss about autoimmune disorders. This is the first part of the autoimmune disorders. See, I'll describe some few terms first before going to the autoimmune diseases. The first word is immune tolerance. That means tolerance of the tissues by the immune system. That means it is that ability of an individual or the immune system by which it can recognize or differentiate between self tissues and antigens. As we know, there are two types of antigens, self antigens and non-self antigens. Self antigens belong to your body and non-self antigens or foreign agents enter your body from outside. Now your immune system has the capacity to differentiate between these two, and this capacity, this ability is called as immune tolerance. Now the opposite of immune tolerance is autoimmunity, in which your immune system fails to differentiate between self antigen and non-self antigen, and then it attacks the self antigen and self tissues, leading to their destruction, and that causes certain diseases called as autoimmune diseases. Now autoimmunity is a state in which the body's immune system fails to distinguish between self and non-self and forms some antibodies against own tissues, and such antibodies are called as autoantibodies. So remember this word autoantibodies. That means the antibodies which are formed against our own tissues are called as autoantibody. That means your immune system has lost the tolerance to one's own tissues. Now in this case, the immune system gets confused and it hurts itself in that confusion. So in short, autoimmunity is exactly the opposite of immune tolerance. Now there are certain diseases called as autoimmune diseases which occur when your immune system attacks your own body tissues. We will discuss the 10 of them, that is systemic lupus erythematosus, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease, type 1 diabetes mellitus or insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, ulcerative colitis, pernicious anemia, myasthenia gravis, multiple sclerosis and Sjogren's syndrome. There is a long list of autoimmune disorders, but we would be discussing only these 10. The second, rheumatoid arthritis, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, Graves' disease and type 1 diabetes mellitus. All of these would be discussed in this video, and in the next video we would discuss about the rest of them. So let's start. The first one is rheumatoid arthritis. Now if I split the word arthritis, what would that signify? Arthro is a word which would mean a joint. Arthro is a joint, and itis, what is itis? Wherever you see this word itis, this itis word represents inflammation. It represents inflammation. So arthritis is inflammation of joints. So basically joints are involved in rheumatoid arthritis, but other than the joints, it can even affect your skin, eyes, lungs, blood vessels and heart. Now as we all know, synovial joints has got a synovial membrane. So in rheumatoid arthritis, autoantibodies would directly attack synovial membrane, which leads to its inflammation, and as a result there is bone erosion, deformation of joints and destruction of cartilage. Now what does all these terms mean? See, this is normal anatomy of a joint, a synovial joint. Here as you can see, these are two bones which are getting articulated here, forming a joint, and this blue portion, this is the articular cartilage, this which is present on the bone. As we all know, in synovial joints, bone surface which is in articulation is covered by a cartilage, and this red line which are you seeing, this red line, this is actually your synovial membrane, and this synovial membrane is responsible for releasing a fluid called as synovial fluid, which provides lubrication to these joints and also provides nutrition. Now in rheumatoid arthritis, antibodies attack the synovial membrane, which leads to the inflammation of synovial membrane. This is what you see in rheumatoid arthritis. The synovial membrane becomes swollen and inflamed. Now what does bone erosion means? Bone erosion is because of rheumatoid arthritis. As you can see in this picture, the surface of the bone has eroded. the surface of the bone has eroded. There is loss of bony tissue from here. This is called as erosion of bone. In what is joint deformation? When your joints deformed and their movement is hampered. Now see, in this photograph you can see the swelling of the joint which is present here. This is a case of rheumatoid arthritis, and in this case you can clearly see the deformation of joints which is not allowing the fingers to straighten up, so your fingers get deformed in this way. So this is called as joint deformation. All of these are the characteristics of rheumatoid arthritis. Now what is rheumatoid factor? Actually the autoantibodies that are formed in rheumatoid arthritis are called as rheumatoid factor, and this is basically IgM. If I take the blood sample of any individual like mine or yours, then there would always be presence of rheumatoid factor. So every individual has got rheumatoid factor normally, but when this rheumatoid factor exceeds its normal value, then it is the diagnostic feature of rheumatoid arthritis. So when these are present beyond a normal level, it confirms the presence of rheumatoid arthritis, which is actually the diagnostic test of rheumatoid arthritis. If we are suspecting a case of rheumatoid arthritis, we just take the blood sample and check for the concentration of rheumatoid factor. If it exceeds the normal value, then the patient is suffering from rheumatoid arthritis. Next is Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Itis once again is the word which means inflammation, and in this case this is the inflammation of an organ or a gland called as thyroid. That means this is the inflammation of thyroid, or called as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. In this case the autoantibodies would directly attack the thyroid gland, which causes its destruction, and due to damage of the thyroid, the concentration of thyroid hormones, that is T3 and T4 hormones. What are thyroid hormones? These are basically T3 and T4 hormones. So your T3 and T4 hormones level reduces in the blood, which is called as hypothyroidism, and in the case of hypothyroidism there would always be presence of goiter. The disease progresses slowly over years, and in chronic phase it causes thyroid damage, causing the loss of T3, T4. And that leads to enlargement of thyroid, which is called as goiter. Goiter is a general term which basically means enlargement of the thyroid gland. Now the enlargement of thyroid gland has got multiple causes. So goiter are of different types depending on the cause. As you can see in this picture, see, this is the normal size of a thyroid gland. This demarcation, you can see this line. Yes, this is the normal size of thyroid gland, but in Hashimoto's thyroiditis, your thyroid glands gets enlarged and it increases in the size. This much is the increment which is seen in Hashimoto's thyroiditis. This is a clear, obvious swelling which can be seen, which can be appreciated in the neck of a person suffering from Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Remember one thing, Hashimoto's thyroiditis is related to hypothyroidism. It causes hypothyroidism. Next disease we would discuss is Graves' disease. Now before studying about Graves' disease, let's talk about some physiology of thyroid gland. And see, there is a hormone which is released from anterior pituitary, which is called as TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. When it is released in the blood, this hormone called TSH would stimulate thyroid gland and release T3 and T4. After a while, when T3, T4 in blood, the concentration of T3, T4 in blood, when it increases, there is a negative feedback, because of which anterior pituitary is inhibited. Due to inhibition of anterior pituitary, there would be another reduction in TSH levels, and a reduction in TSH levels would then won't stimulate thyroid gland, and the concentration of T3, T4 in blood would reduce. This is called as feedback mechanism. Whenever T3, T4 would reduce in blood, TSH would increase, and an increase in TSH would lead to an increase in T3, T4. Whenever there is an increase in T3, T4, TSH would be reduced, and the reduction in TSH would then again reduce T3, T4. Now in Graves' disease, listen to this, in Graves' disease there are some autoantibodies which are formed which would mimic TSH, which would mimic the action of TSH. So whatever is the function of TSH is now done by autoantibodies. Now these autoantibodies would reach its receptors in the thyroid cells in thyroid gland and would stimulate thyroid gland. This stimulation would lead to an increase in T3, T4 concentration of blood, and this then causes hyperthyroidism. Now this is a differentiating feature between Graves' disease and thyroiditis of Hashimoto. In Hashimoto's thyroiditis there was hypothyroidism, but in Graves' disease there is hyperthyroidism. Now the negative feedback which was present because of TSH, this negative feedback will not work. Why it will not work? Because an increase in T3 T4 here in this case is because of the autoantibodies that is mimicking TSH. If even the negative feedback which is produced because of an increased T3 T4 in blood is produced, there would be a decline in TSH. There would be a decline in TSH, but there won't be any decline in autoantibodies, which are continuously stimulating thyroid gland to produce more and more amount of T3 T4. So the entire negative feedback mechanism is not controlling the autoantibodies, and that's why the overproduction of hormones is not inhibited, and it would continue. That increases the T3 T4 level in a very alarming pace. Now as you can appreciate in this figure, there is an enlargement of the thyroid. The initial size of the thyroid is this much, as you can see this in a lighter color. This is the original size of thyroid, and because of Graves' disease the thyroid gland has increased to this level. This is again goiter, and enlargement of thyroid is always a goiter. So this is another example of goiter, but with a different cause. Now the characteristic feature of Graves' disease is a condition in which your eyeball protrudes out of the eye socket. As you can see in this figure, this condition is called as exophthalmos. Exo means outside, and ophthalmo is a word which means eye. That means your eyeball gets popped out, not completely but to a certain level, which is clearly visible in this figure. The condition is called as exophthalmos. So the Graves' disease is also called as exophthalmic goiter because of the two conditions. The first one is exophthalmos and the second is goiter. Next is IDDM, insulin dependent diabetes mellitus, or type 1 diabetes mellitus. See, diabetes mellitus is itself a huge topic and cannot be discussed completely in this video. We are having a different video over diabetes mellitus, but here I would give a brief idea about type 1 diabetes mellitus only. Basically, diabetes mellitus are of three types: type 1, type 2 and type 3. Type 1 is an autoimmune disease, and type 3 is gestational diabetes that occurs only in pregnancy. Now in type 1 diabetes mellitus is called as insulin dependent diabetes mellitus because it is purely because of the deficiency of the insulin in the body. Now if I talk about the normal physiology, there are some islet of Langerhans which are present in pancreas, and there are some beta cells present in islet of Langerhans, and these beta cells produces a hormone called as insulin. This insulin is responsible for reducing the blood sugar level. Now in IDDM what happens, there are autoantibodies formed which attack the beta cells of islet of Langerhans, which destroys beta cells, and due to destruction of beta cells there is either a deficiency of insulin or insulin is not produced at all, which leads to an increase in blood sugar level. Now the blood sugar level is increased. That means the glucose, the sugar, is not reaching to the cells, making the cells deprived of energy. Now even IDDM can produce all the complications of diabetes. We would be having a good discussion on the diabetes in our another video. Now I would give a brief idea, a brief difference between type 1 and type 2. Listen to this carefully. The first case I am talking about a healthy pancreas. In a healthy pancreas, beta cells are present which produces a hormone called as insulin. Now a cell, every cell has got an insulin receptor on it. Insulin hormone would interact with this insulin receptor, and the moment it interacts with the insulin receptor, this insulin receptor is stimulated, which leads to opening of the some transport channels present on the cell membrane called as GLUT, that is glucose transporters, called as GLUT, GLUT, which is an acronym for glucose transporters. So these are basically transport channels present on the cell membrane. The moment you stimulate the insulin receptors, the cell membrane's GLUT channels open up and the glucose is transported into the cell. This is the normal physiology which happens. In type 1 diabetes mellitus, beta cells are destroyed, which leads to a reduce in insulin. Now when insulin is reduced, there would be no stimulation of insulin receptors, and when insulin receptors are not stimulated, glucose transporters won't open up and glucose won't enter into the cell. This won't happen. It won't enter the cell because the insulin receptors are not stimulated because of the absence or deficiency of insulin. This is type 1 diabetes mellitus. In type 2 diabetes mellitus, the levels of insulin is normal. There is no reduction or absence of insulin, but there is problem of insulin receptors or glucose transporters. Insulin is stimulating insulin receptors, but in inefficient ways. There are some problems with the insulin receptors, and because insulin receptors are inefficiently stimulated, so glucose transporters won't open up, and when they won't open up, glucose won't get transported into the cell and its level would reduce inside the blood. Now in both the cases, in type 1 and type 2, there would be an increase in blood sugar level, but the mechanism is entirely different between type 1 and type 2. And type 3 diabetes mellitus is gestational diabetes which occurs only during pregnancy, and that's because of the imbalance of certain sex hormones. So that's it for today. In our next video, we would be having a good discussion on the remaining other autoimmune disorders. Thank you very much for watching us. Keep connected.